So, did any of you have a professor, sort of like Magnus Tabor when you were growing up?
That was going to be my question.
It's a good intro, isn't it? I did. I felt a little close to home this section. So, anyways, we can get started. I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books. That was a failed intro to our 2 month review podcast, in which we take a giant book, break it down section by section. We are reading The Tunnel by William Gass, and today we are going over, I believe, the fourth section, which is Mad Meg, which goes up to page 283, or is it the fifth section? Whatever section it is. Um, and we'll be talking about that today. I am joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox, and Kaija Stromanis, editor at Coffee House Press. How you two doing?
Be quiet, piggy.
I was waiting to make that joke too.
Wouldn't it be nice if we lived in a world where you could just be demeaning to women and just tell them to shut up and let me do what I want to do and don't ask questions about what I'm doing if it's bad or not? There's a
Wait,
lot
Wouldn't
of
it be nice if you could tell them?
we this came up on the
Unfortunately,
pod.
we can't do this, but if we get powerful enough, we could totally do that.
Do
And just
whatever you want, man.
Yeah,
The this came up on the other pod.
a lot of misogyny coming up. Buckle up,
I'm
A
everybody.
lot
fucking
of
my
anti-Semitic stuff. A lot of anti-Semitic stuff too. Like, whoa.
everything.
The
Everything is heightened everything this week.
I'm
this
doing better than Kohler, which isn't saying a lot.
He's not well at the end of this
Yeah.
section. Um,
He's a little better off than Mad Meg
then yeah, I mean he's not dead.
though.
He's not like his body's not crashing out on
Yeah,
him into
yeah.
the grave. So I suppose there's that. I'm gonna try and recap this. I read it over a few days, so I hope I'm not skipping anything. But basically, we have a sort of pastoral section about Kohler's childhood and going out for drives. Like he went out for drives with his dad, would take them on a Sunday drive. He tries to do it with his kids, but does not quite nearly as successful, which I can relate to very clearly. But on one of these drives, he sees a car accident and someone dies. And this is one of the moments. And then that is put against, and it is a very, I mean, a lot of that picking fruit and whatnot is really like just a pastoral, like very nice section to read. Very nice standalone short story. The part then that's juxtaposed with though is his being in Magnus Tabor and Mad Meg's class, learning about history and him Magnus describing what his theory of history is and what history means, which is like actually very very interesting. But then at the end of this section, he's dying. I don't know if he has a specific disease like cerebral palsy or something that is related to that degree, or if it's just general age. But his body's shorting out. He can't walk. He can't control himself anymore. This man that's this huge figure in Kohler's life as like the fount of all like knowledge about history and ways to relate to the world is dying and dies. And there is like, I don't know, I felt kind of sad about the whole thing, to be honest.
I mean,
I know,
you got like 15, 20 pages to have feelings about it, so
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
it's a long, slow death.
And and before that, there's a lot of really awful shit that he says related to Jews in particular, but as you said, women as well. So, what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, it's there's a lot. I mean, with all the sections, I feel like there's like this dichotomy of how to look at everything. And then with this one, like I kind of felt like how much of it is just like unapologetic honesty, where we're supposed to connect with the character that way, but then how much of it is just disgusting and repulsive. And so then you want to judge the person. And so, like, in some ways, you want to embrace the character for their vulnerability and their honesty, but then you want to push them away because of what they're sharing. And
Yeah.
so it's this really, like, with most parts, you're just in this really conflicted space again.
Which I actually think is exacerbated by something you told me, Kaya, that you listened to part of the podcast, or part of the podcast, part of the audiobook that Gas read. Do you want to talk for a second about listening to him read, and then I'll throw in my little 2 cents?
Yeah. So because I did not finish the section last week, so I thought I would try to catch up by doing the audiobook because I now have a very consistent 1 hour commute one way to coffee house. Um, and I don't know what I what I thought I would expect, but William Gass has a very calming, like almost horse whisper type voice.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it
So
really
it
is.
was really weird to be like even the Mad Meg sections, like it's such a different effect. And I finally figured out, I just want to say that who his voice reminds me of is Fred Willard. I don't
Oh,
know if you guys
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
I just put up the video, or not the video, but a
Yep.
picture, which made it even funnier because the sections where I think it was Mad Meg who's like something something, hey, 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 like that's all I could imagine was Fred Willard reading it. And like it's a very different experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can hear him turning the pages too, which is fun. But yeah, you had asked me, or Chad, I guess I might be stealing your comment, but your comment was, oh, something about like, does it make you empathize more with Kohler? And I was like, oh no, no. Like I'm I can listen to it and separate William Gass from Kohler. And I think if I were to continue listening to the audiobook, I would probably fall into a pattern of empathizing with Kohler. But for this one section, for today's section, it was just weird to basically to hear Kohler through someone like William Gass or Fred Willard.
I think yeah, that was my comment. That was what I was going to say, and I think part of it is that envisioning trying to picture who Kohler is through these sections as this like kind of raving lunatic of sorts that's like over the top pissed, hates everyone, is willing to say like really inappropriate shit about people. Like all that's very gross and like you can envision him as the sort of monster. And then if you hear this voice that becomes Kohler's voice, and that voice is like a very like rosy cheeked, very nice old man with the old man voice that you're just sort of like listening to and he's telling you. And there is a power. I mean, as someone who's truly now at this point, like way too far into the knowledge fight, like world and listening to these Alex Jones things, that when people are talking, you do have a power to convince people or to get people to sympathize with you in a way that you do not when it is written down and you do not under like emails or tweets or shit like that that's like toneless. Listening to someone does give you the opportunity for nuance in a different way. And so I thought of it when you were talking about it in relation to Mad Meg's kind of teaching style, where he's coming in and he's like bombastic and yelling all this stuff. And yet you're still like, I remember the professor I had that was like this was Dr. Was it Barkley? Yeah, Dr. Barkley. And he was a psychology professor and he was like unhinged in so many ways, but so smart and made you think and challenged you and would do things that were incredibly not cool by our standards. Like where someone was talking in one of his classes, someone brought up like transcendental or transcending reality. And he like went up and he kicked their chair. He said, transcendent that motherfucker. You can't get through that. This is real life. And like would lock the doors to his room so that he could control the energy and like had that sort of presence. Very sweet dude, was not like whatever. He did get in a lot of trouble for talking about the president of Michigan State University wanting to like perform fellatio. That was a problem. He said things that got him in trouble. But yet he was like that system of like you can do that and like in that space by controlling it and by talking and becoming like human in that way, it defangs it to a certain degree. And I wondered with the audiobook, seeing William Gass and hearing William Gass takes that all down like a notch. And you
I
can
do think
do
that
that.
I think that professor is probably the least of Michigan State's worries in hindsight. Just
I
gonna
mean,
throw that out
this
there.
is
Yeah.
this is before that I predate whatever his name was. I actually
Uh,
got an ad yesterday on Instagram for someone promoting like pelvic, that same thing that he did, that pelvic
No.
whatever treatment. And I was like, oh, this is gross.
Yeah. No, it was definitely um not what I had expected. And like I said, I could easily see if I were to go through more of the audiobook of starting to have that effect of like I'm not going to stand on the chair shouting German, German, German like Mad Meg students did, but um
Yeah, that was unnerving.
Yeah.
As someone who doesn't trust anything about Germany, that one was not cool.
But yeah, the psychology of it for sure, um, is a scary thing. I mean, that's also, I think that's how Germany, not how, but that's part of what got them into, let's call it that mess in the first place.
About remember this one? The
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
there's the Palo Alto high school teacher, I
Mm.
believe it was in the early 80s, that started a Nazi movement that he called the Wave, just to
Yeah,
show his
yeah.
students how easy
Yep.
this is.
Yeah.
And
And
that let's change our school's culture.
yep.
Join the wave.
There is a movie about that I've never watched because I was
Yeah.
honestly too, I bought it when I was studying in Germany, and I think I got rid of it only like, I don't know, several years ago, but I never could bring myself to watch it because I was worried of how unsettled I would feel by the end of it.
I mean, that's one of the things in my class where I don't quite do what he does. Although I do close the doors. I don't allow the doors to be open when I teach because I
I
don't like
think
that.
I also think you're supposed to on university campuses because they're considered fire doors, but that's okay.
I don't know. Everyone else's doors are open when they're teaching when I walk by. It's
Well,
if there's an
you're the
option.
only
But
I,
regardless,
I think in some ways though, Gas reading the tunnel is almost like a troll move. One, he's a very good reader, like, and it's performed fantastically.
yeah.
I found it on YouTube. I was watching a YouTube, listening to the YouTube recording of it. But the other thing, it almost feels like it's a like three-dimensional chess move where he wants to close that distance and make you think that he is Kohler. And so with him, like he's I think he's playing mind games by reading it. I think he knows what he's doing. Like
Yeah.
and like messing with you in a way. It feels
Yeah.
like it, at least.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the thing I mentioned to Chad specifically was where he'll sigh. He'll just, the he's because he wrote
Does.
this because he
He
knows. So
embodies it.
yeah, he does embody it. And again, yeah, that's I have nothing more to say on that, but
I do have one last thing though with this, like we were talking about this kind of multi-layered the way these sections are. Would you say that this in this section, um, that Kohler is like probably the least sympathetic we've seen?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. I thought like the like somewhat more sympathetic it towards the end. Well, both like in the situation with the drives that
yeah.
he's going on the drives, they're just going to be there. He doesn't really want to do it, but he goes along. They're stealing fruit because it's a Great Depression period and they
Yeah.
need food. And that feels very like I feel sympathetic towards that and towards his plight, like the whole thing, and then trying to get his kids to go, and they're like, absolutely not. This is wrecking stuff. That's sort of heartbreaking. And then like the idea of losing your mentor, like given like he does have like a part towards the end where it's like, yes, you're like your ideas have clouded me for ages and still cloud me. Like I do relate a little bit through the John O'Brien of it all, of like he's sort of a figure like this. He wasn't like a Nazi, but he was like did inappropriate shit. He has anger issues. Like I can relate to that. And like having that
That's
person
a ringing
die
endorsement. Wasn't like a Nazi.
wasn't like a Nazi. He wasn't like a Nazi Nazi. He was just like,
Oh, okay.
you
Okay.
know, a little on the side. No, he wasn't it wasn't like that. But nevertheless, like he's a controversial figure. A lot of people didn't like him. And like when he died, he was old and not that old, but old enough and like body failing, mind failing, seeing that person die and knowing like they're kind of a shadow of what they were, but like when they were in their form, they did have a big impact, be it controversial or not. And Mad Meg's things of getting everyone to chant the German, doing all that, that's all crazy. That's like Germany
Mhm.
in the 30s and like what you're saying with the wave and the ability. Oh, I was going to say in like my class, we talk about Edward Bernays and his manipulation of the masses to do certain things that aren't necessarily, anti-Semitic or of this vein, but are like damaging towards culture. Like he was the one who's responsible for women taking up smoking in a large part. Like he's very much was manipulating people into bad ends for the gain of someone else. and he's just an American figure. So there's these people that are like that, and yet like some of the things that he's saying about history, I actually find really interesting. Like separating it from like the Nazi aspect, like talking about what is history, what is the study of history, what makes history, and the idea that it's the historian who invents it. The person who writes it and lives on is what the history becomes. Like the things themselves and like that chain of arrangements are like he says, like it's detritus, it's bullshit. It's just things that you find, receipts, and a letter, this occurrence. But like the person who writes it and becomes the figure of that history is the one that makes that history. That's a really interesting concept. So as a professor, like I mean, that's cool. The rest of it, like really hard to separate because he's also saying like which Jew's death was the one that made it a tragedy? Was it number 1003 or 10,000? And you're like, fuck, dude, like that is not an okay thing to be saying. Or
I've read Douglas Adams. The answer is 42.
42. Or what's the old Sarah Silverman joke where her like niece calls and is like, "Oh, I did a report on the Holocaust and 6 billion Jews died." She's like, "No, no, no. 6 million. 6 billion would be a tragedy." You're
Oh gosh.
like it's such an awful
Yeah.
joke, but
Yeah.
but also like
Yeah.
gets at the same thing that's in here, but in
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
like comic release way.
Because I found it interesting that like there's all this like unsympathetic material in this section, but it's also for me where Kohler's becoming the most knowable
Mm.
Hmm.
because of the history, because of the stories, because of the, and so it's again, it's this weird space to be in. It's really,
Yeah. I would add for me, um, I don't think I find him more or less uh sympathetic, or I don't sympathize or empathize any more or less with him, but the juxtaposition, I really did like the scenes with the car and the car crash and the weed picking because like I texted right before coming on, it really reminds me of like the Southern Gothic American writers like Flannery O'Connor and Carson McCullers. But the juxtaposition of those sort of really like American novel type scenes with these scenes of Mad Meg and these really disgusting and disturbing questions about, well, how many Jews is too many Jews? That's where the ick that's where in the ick lies. So I see what you're saying, Brian, of this making him this section, he's almost worse in a few ways because he's thinking of these two things in parallel, and that's kind of hard to for me to deal with is like how can you parallel those two memories.
I think Gothic was a really, that's a really great note that you're providing because, um, at least for like Southern Gothic, right, in the American sense, um, it's grotesque,
Mm.
right? The extreme exaggeration of every characteristic someone could possibly have, right? It's like those masquerade ball masks that you wear with giant noses, huge smiles, disgusting frowns, and we're definitely, and I think it works beautifully with Mad Meg being grotesque. And if anybody looked up the artwork that it references, Bruegel, I don't know how to say the name,
That's right.
um, but it's bizarre and grotesque also. Like it all fits.
Did you read more about that? We can post a link to it in the show notes for anyone, or you can just Google Mad
Just
Meg
a little
painting.
bit. I mean, there's a lot to explore with it because it is like like it is way out there for the 1500s. Um,
Did you
for
know about it already, or how did you come upon it?
um, I had like I recall it being um a famous artwork. I just didn't know who or where, and so I just looked it up. But to be like that forward thinking in the 16th century, I mean, it's like it kind of makes you think of like um I don't know, it's like Rococo graffiti having to do with Dante's Inferno and women causing chaos on Earth and war and pestilence as we jump into the mouth of hell. It's like, what is going on here? Which, when we start talking about Kohler and his mom, and then the landscape of like the domestic, and then the nation, and then the war, like all of it starts like weaving together, and absolutely like gas is freaking brilliant the way this braids together. Um,
Yeah, you know who it reminded me of, and this is why I was just looking as you're talking about that, is Bosch, who also is on the cover of this
yeah.
Bruce Wagner book, and it's very similar, and they were contemporaries. So like
Okay.
the two of them doing that particular form of painting seems very unique. But yeah, the part that I was saying about the painting being like men versus women also feels a little on point.
Of course, yeah, and like there's this like kind of like there's like a mythology to that painting. There's a mythology to what we have in this section as well. Even with like Mad Meg, even Mad Meg as the mentor. There's like a mythology to this like oh, that can't be real, can it? Like
Right. He's larger than life, which
yeah,
the woman,
yeah,
the Mad Meg in the painting is like a giant,
yeah.
or
And
seems
then
appears to be a giant to people, I
and
think is
like
what he
and kind
says.
of what I imprinted on the piece, the literary piece from the art piece was kind of like this idea of when I was thinking of Kohler, like I see the way like mom messed him up, juxtaposed with the way father messed him up, and it's done in different ways. It's almost like dad was pathetic and weak, and so mom had to fill that up for me, and now I have like chaos and destruction coming out of mother. And then you look at this painting, and it's like feminine chaos and war. And then so then you take that and you put it onto Germany and what his guilt and innocence, and like you can start seeing the way this stuff is all stacking together with this personal history and mythology and how it's playing out now with you being ineffective and unhappy and wanting to tunnel behind your furnace. So
Yeah,
it's a brilliant, brilliant section. It's weird. It's hard to piece it together, but like as a container, thinking about that artwork as a container to hold all that stuff in, it starts to make a little more sense, I think.
I agree with that totally. Kaya?
Yes. I
Yes.
also agree with that.
All right.
I'm just nodding. Yeah, I was muted, but yes, I agree.
I was looking, this is one in his in the notes that they provided in the audiobook. It's broken down in a bunch of sections. In my youth, a Sunday drive, a fugue, the barricade, and at death's door. Which most of the others are only like one or two.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this one is like a little bit bigger and a little bit broader in
Yeah.
terms of that stuff.
Yeah, because like I started thinking about like male female that dichotomy because that started to kind of like pop up for me as well. Um, again, like the idea of like the domestic and it being a war zone, right? Like he says, Kohler describes, he says that mom filled the house like a storm, clattered in the drawers and cupboards. Like it's like this presence where there is no space, there is no escape. Like there's this storm, there's this destructive nature that is like inescapable. But then when like he talks about his father, you know, he says like his father was sitting like a shadow after supper, long ago surrendered his authority and then his hope.
So dark.
Yeah,
And his mom's like an alcoholic, which is
yeah.
pops up in a lot of these stories. And a lot from, as Ted mentioned, from his actual life, which is
Hmm.
another one of these like looking at history and asking that kind of like broad unanswerable question of how much of like Kohler's existence is based on the coincidences of where he was raised and who he met and what happened along the way, and how much of it is inherent to the system or inherent to him. Is he naturally like a bad person, or is like these events that led up to this point put him in the situation where this kind of stuff comes out?
All right, well don't go too far with this, but imagine you you witness your father having no authority, and so you kind of lose it in yourself or don't have it as you grow up. And so what you start to do is look for that in others rather than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so a character like Mad Meg can come in and make quite an impression on you, can shape you, and can mold the way you see the world, how you feel about other people. Or Hitler, or Trump can come in. Like, right? If you don't have it within yourself, you look for a strong person to do that for you. And what you get is what you get,
Yeah.
right?
Party of disappointed people.
But what
Yep.
what I love though is like in this section you see it with Kohler, and then like you can't help but look at what the material he's writing about and what he's struggling with personally, but then historically and then mythologically, like it all like again, this is a I could see why this tied as being a really good book that year.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it is so well done. I think one of the things about listening to the audiobook too that I didn't mention is that you can see like how perfectly crafted every sentence is. That he reads these as it is like there's no false notes, there's no like missteps. Everything is like right there. And even like what you say, like his size, the places that he has like those kind of moments, you can hear it as Kohler, as him reading it as it like really is. And like it's so clear that this is like thought through, put together,
Yeah.
crafted, well honed, exactly where it's supposed to be. It's not sloppy. It's not like anything where it's like, well, that's close enough. Which I think is like the motto for a lot of like artistic enterprises at our point in life is, good enough, close enough, whatever.
Well, like
This is not
listen to this
that.
description of the house. Like you want to talk about like crafting something perfectly. So
Yeah.
we're talking about, his domestic life and wanting to imprint it on Germany and the war or something like that, right? Like,
Hmm.
okay, cool, whatever, we could do that. But like the way he's like massaging our brain like Play-Doh, his childhood home, it felt like a little trench of a house. Okay. So we get like trench warfare
Yep.
imagery when discussing the domestic life, or quote, daily bombardments of complaint and disappointment, right? Diction, like those little word choices of trench and bombardments. I mean, and it's, obviously it's carpet bombed throughout. Um, it's like, oh man, that is like beautifully crafted,
Yeah, it really is.
beautifully
Everywhere's
crafted.
where it's supposed to be. I thought you, Brian, would be very excited by the structure of a PDP particle because the party of Tabor being the spiritual founder of the party of disappointed people, then that little structure of it is what we were talking about last week of like the self and the reflection and the
Yep.
way that things kind of bounce off each other and are both at once. And all of his flags, which are there as well. We're starting to get some of that stuff, which will be fun.
And then is the squiggly, is that supposed to signify the opening of the tunnel?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna
I
leave that. I'm gonna leave
mean,
that.
I
Yeah, a
think
lot of like the clip art, pop art stuff, I'm not keen on just yet. Maybe I'll
yeah,
get there by page 400. I don't know, but
yeah.
I'm not there yet.
I did
Yeah,
I did appreciate orange for outrage though.
hell yeah.
The color coding of the flags.
I mean, this is someone who did write a book on being blue. That's all exploration of blue, both as a word and as a color and as a mood and everything else. So like keyed into color and it's like representations pretty
Well,
deeply.
Mulligan Stew has ruined blue for the rest of my life. I can
Forever.
never,
I
I
I
can
still
never
don't know
see
that that
blue.
wasn't an intentional joke.
I cannot see the word blue ever in writing and just not think like, what a hack.
Well, there is an email or something that I saw between Sorrentino and John O'Brien in which there is like a slight reference towards Gas's Blue book, like in a not entirely like they clearly liked and respected Gas, but there was something that
Yeah.
was like a little nugget there, but it was also like 19 whatever 74 9 or whatever, so it's like before the tunnel and before a lot of like Gas's writing, so would be obviously like this young upstart
Yeah.
Just always fun to think about. Oh man.
Just the blue in the gills, I guess.
That
Blue.
blue, and puzzle pieces. I cannot see puzzle being referenced or used in terms of anything without losing my mind now, thanks to rereading Mulligan's too. So infuriating. Like just like a puzzle, like get out of here. Just like a jigsaw. No. No hack. Take it to Twitter. Get it off your book. Sorry, I'm having some not
No,
liking Twitter
I
today.
thing I wanted to say because we mentioned the clip art and stuff is that that's one thing that obviously you lose when listening to the audiobook. Gas does put some emphasis, so like page 229 where the family is stopping at the Rainbow ice cream store and he basically what he just does is he says the bolded parts louder. So you can sort of they stand apart. So it'll be like the R in rainbow, I remember, was written in peach. The O, you're like, okay, I got it. So like flipping through now and looking in the book, I'm like, I understand what he was doing, but he doesn't like when it says the like a oh whatever, and then the like the ice cream cone that's in the book, he doesn't say ice cream cone, just for those curious. He doesn't
Oh, okay.
he doesn't narrate the clip art.
Right.
Um, and that was that's just something I'm aware of when listening to audiobooks. But I do want to say really quick again with the language or also further with the language and use of language. Um, I love the use of adjectives as nouns and also on page on 229 where he says, my parents and my aunt, if she had decided to obnoxious with her presence, remained in the car. I was like, I want to bring that into common usage. What are you gonna do? Just come around and obnoxious me to obnoxious us with her presence.
I
I just
love
read an
that.
essay today that had something similar to that. It was Dylan Thomas, August Bank Holiday. He says there was a sunburn of girls.
Oh, nice.
It's like,
Very nice.
damn,
Yeah,
that's good. I'm stealing that. I highlighted that and like put it in my, I'm gonna steal this bank. But yeah, same thing.
yeah, it's great.
I have a question. You mentioned the kind of American or Southern Gothic reference, like kind of vibe in this one, especially. I mean, it's hard with the car crash not to think of what is that? A good man is hard to find.
Yep, Flannery O'Connor.
Okay. And I was, as we were talking in the back of my mind, I was like tumbling, trying to remember that story. And it made me realize, like, in that story, there is not anybody that you're necessarily sympathetic with in that story. You hate everybody,
Yep.
right? Uh, Grandma has this, like, it's the detritus of the American South. She has what she thought was the good old days. And it's like, well, no, you're racist. You're using racial, like, terrible language, you're judgmental, you're fake, you're lying, you're manipulating. The kids are brats, the parents suck. Like everybody's horrible.
Yep. From start to
Then
finish.
there's this car crash, and the thing that shows up is, I think what's the character's name? The Misfit?
I think, yeah, it's like her.
Doesn't I don't know if it has a name, but it's like I always picture it like as Tom Petty or something like
Oh
this,
God.
right? Like a shirtless. Right, and you know, if you haven't read this story by now, like what were you waiting for so long for? They show up and shoot
Yeah.
everybody. They shoot the baby, they
Yeah.
shoot the mom, they shoot the dad. Everybody gets shot in the face, and
Yeah.
finally they shoot the grandma. Um,
Yep, you're
but
right. It's Misfit.
and then but what I thought was so powerful about it, now that I'm thinking about it again, is the only real genuine person in that entire story is the monster.
Hmm.
They know who they are and they are acting out on who they are and they are being authentic, right? In a world full of, you know, and to me, like that's what this section is. It's disgusting
Yeah.
and it's gross, but somewhere in there, there's a like it's the most authentic. Like we're getting so far, it's like the most authentic we've seen, like the most authenticity we've seen. And so maybe it's not by any accident that you're picking up on this vibe. It has this car crash, like I don't know. He seems pretty smart about everything so far. It's not a stretch to think that he could be speaking to like being authentic is disgusting.
Yep.
Right?
That's
Yep.
really interesting. I haven't thought about that story in a million years, but
Yeah, I mean,
the vibes of it are, yeah. And what you say, Brian, is a absolutely amazing, like way to connect it, and makes sense. But like the vibes of it just generally do really match this section too, and that bit. He's playing with all these not different like forms in terms of different preferences, but he has such a good handle on literature and how things are presented and how they can signify different stuff. I think in part, that came to mind to me. Maybe this is a bit going off of your tangent, but not exactly. Of like the way that he's connecting, or the way that this book really focuses on the Midwest, which has come up several times on like this kind of like bleakness, but also this sort of like almost sheep-like nature. Like the Midwest is where it would be easiest to start like a Nazi movement in some ways. I'm going, this is, I'm extemporizing now, but in the way that like those people are like bereft, downtrodden, are there to like looking for that figure, the MAGA figure, the Mad Meg figure, the Hitler figure. And there's a part this came to mind because I finally finished In the Heart of the Country. The last like rereading this, I had one story left, and I was like, it's the title story. I'm just gonna read it this weekend. And there's a section. It's basically like broken down into different chapters or bits that are named that have different titles. Like the one that I'm reading is there's one people, and this one is politics. Sports, politics, and religion are the three passions of the badly educated. They're the Midwest's open sores. Ugly to see, a source of constant discontent. They
sorry.
sap the body's and body's strength. Appalling quantities of money, time, and energy are wasted on them. The rural mind is narrow, passionate, and reckless on these matters. Greed, however, short-sighted and direct, will not alone account for it. I have known men, for instance, who for years have voted squarely against their interests. And it goes on like that for another several lines. But that was a part of this that really struck me as like being very tunnel-like, and also like Kohler being surrounded in this way of like you've seen Mad Meg. He's representing like how the masses can become like hysterical in this way and act in a way that's like horrifying and horrible, and in certain regards against their own interest. Um, and then going back to like his colleagues who he thinks are just all fucking idiots, and everyone around there is kind of like, his wife is just like a blob of horribleness. His kids suck. Everything sucks, and like this is the landscape in which like those kind of ideas can sprout. The anger sprouts, the disappointment sprouts. All of these things happen when you're in this situation where your context is like absolute failure. And then like one of those people that's like, "Hey, write about me. Don't fuck love, forget love. Write something important, write about me, make history. You are the one making history. Do this thing." And that sort of like that contrast with that sort of low level, everything's pretty gross and awful and downtrodden really seemed to stand out both in that story and then also in this section as kind of a backdrop to it. I'm rambling. You guys take it
No,
away.
no, no, it's great.
Well, a tunnel, right? We've what we have is like a boy that is like smushed and squeezed between this like I don't know what would you say like domineering, like a domineering mom and just a shitty disappointment of a father.
Aren't we
So
all?
does that do those pressures does that justify what he is now? What, like bitter, sabotage, like he's sabotaging his own manuscript right now, like this rampant racism and misogyny that we're getting, right? It's like I didn't want to be like that. I just got squeezed into it.
Just
Here I
Well,
got
am.
molded.
Yeah.
that's what he does get squeezed into. I mean, I've said almost every week that Martha's in charge. And
Yeah.
so he, and the parallels and the sections of picking the weeds, like Chad mentioned, he does it with his parents, and then he does it with his kids. Like you can view it as sort of you could view it lightly and nostalgically as he is perpetuating a family tradition, or like you just said, Brian, he's being forced into this sort of just mindset lifestyle of like this is what you do. You grow up, you are miserable with your children, your wife is a battle axe, and then you dig a tunnel behind the furnace and you die.
Uh, Well, we got to modernize that. Somewhere in between there, you go to an ugly sweater party
Mm, mm,
once a year.
yes.
And that's the highlight of your year.
Yeah.
I hope someone mentions how cool my ugly sweater is.
I've
Then they will notice me.
got a one up Jared.
Yeah.
Kai, as a translator, how'd you feel about the section that's like, people, you can rewrite all of history, everyone's worshiping this thing, and it's all based on a bad translation or a mistranslation of
Oh,
it
that's like
all.
the worst nightmare. That makes me itchy. It does also remind me that William Gass, well, I don't actually know if he spoke German fluently, but he
He
does
did.
well, that I don't know if it's in character, but Kohler, everything is like it's not like the pronunciation is bad. It's
Oh,
another very cringy thing. And so I was going to ask you whether you knew if that was just part
I
of
mean, he
the
was connected to the German department, so
yeah, if that was
I
if
don't
that
know.
was part of the bit or
That's funny then. That's so funny.
It would
yeah.
be like
This
that
this is
hayseed
this
going
this
to
is
Germany.
Yeah, well yeah, that's the thing. And like Kohler, like, Meg telling Kohler, like, you're very German. If you're not German, you're like, well, Dutch at the least. Like there's
yeah.
something very German about you, but all the way through, like, oh, I can't think of what the do I have the example somewhere written down?
There,
Um, no, I don't have it written down, but just some of the German phrases or words where I'm just like, oh man, it's very like I don't know what the German to English version of gringo would be, but that's what it is.
Oh, that makes sense. That does make sense. There's one part that was like sort of related to that, not with the German part exactly, but where he says something, Mad Meg says something like, "Oh, well, you're an American Yank, so you guys like to put things into order and fix things up. We already did that. We're Germany. Like our shit's in line.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we're so far ahead of you." I do also love just the line, "Could any history of Western Europe written in Romanian become a classic?" Like this idea of like the one making the history is like it's very fascinating to me because it does play into this book a lot, and it is something that you see both with narcissists and with like the way that people do treat history as like it's the kind of great man idea of history, but also like through the old, wasn't it Stalin who said that the secretary is the one who writes history? Is they're the ones taking the notes at the meeting and crafting reality. Maybe it's more like that. The secretary is the one that crafts reality. Um, but I find that I found that part of it all actually intellectually stimulating, even though
Yeah.
sometimes I was like, I'm not following this exactly, but the ideas are there, and I'm starting to get them, and seeing like this kind of interrogative professorial style of like, well, what is it then? What is it? This isn't it. That's not it. That's dumb. It's the consciousness. Like, no, the consciousness is just like a wet fart. Like it's gone and the world goes on. It doesn't matter. And we agree that there's these things, but what are these things? That's not history. That's not a story. That's not like what changes stuff. I found that really like compelling and interesting. And I had another thought, but now the cat's on my lap and took me out of it. Um, but yeah, anyways, overall, I found that cool. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. And the thing about it that kept like coming home to me, aside from the ideas, is that when it slips into Mad Meg speaking, it's so recognizable. Like there does not have to distinguish it with quotation marks or setting anything off. It's sort of like the Gaddis effect, where like you're like, oh, this is who's speaking now.
Catching the
This
rhythms
is
and the yeah.
there. Yeah, and to be able to do that so professionally and in this way is like just a remarkable skill. Like I really want I always want people to get better, like the translators to be even more attuned to like tone and shifts and voice and how that's constructed and like the subtle ways in which that comes through. But I don't know how to articulate it. I just know when you read things like this, you're like, that's it. That thing. That's the thing.
Do more of this. Yeah. Copy this.
Yeah, it's like, they say like the Eskimos have so many different words for snow. And it's like JD Vance. Like you can say couch, you can say sofa, you can say love seat, you can say chaise, you can say sectional, you can say like it's important when crafting that voice, having all these different textures within that color palette. It's really important.
For JD catching strays on a week after like the best South Park episode. In which he and Trump get it on. Amazing. We don't have to do a deep dive into South
No,
Park or Pluribus, although I do want to talk to you about Pluribus at
What I
some
what I am noticing though, and it's like it's so pathetic, which is perfect for Kohler because he's just such a pathetic character, I think. And I'm really enjoying like how pathetic he is in a lot of like it's
but
like it is the perfect academic like you're so pathetic. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm
dude,
so pathetic.
Fred Willard,
But like
which
when you get to write the history, you can be the victim.
Yep. You get
yeah,
it. Yep.
Where like all right, so your mom was this, your dad was this, and the Midwest is this, but like you like why aren't you responsible for yourself in in anything?
Hence
Like
the party of disappointed people.
yeah. Yeah.
Shit didn't work out. It wasn't my fault, but shit
Get to
didn't
be
work
the
out.
victim.
It's
You get to
not
be the
fair.
victim. Yep.
It's
which
unfair.
Susu could be the poster person for shit not working out.
Poor Susu. So yeah, so I know you have to get going, Brian, so we can call it here. Do you have a favorite line? I did have one other like of those contrasts was Mad Meg's like bombast compared to that physical representation of him is another one of these like he's bigger than life and yet he's just pathetic old dude like yelling. I wouldn't be surprised if you panned out like this is one of those things like it would be in a movie like you're in this big room and people are chanting German and then it pans back and no one's there. It's just Kohler and like this old man shuffling around and Kohler being like Germany, Germany and like none of the rest of it's taking place, which would be very fun.
I love this little scene where they're buying ice creams.
Ah, that was great.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like the little concrete detail that can tell the infinite.
Mhm.
It's like you could do a master class just on this little scene. It has like the the characters, the racism, the like, on page 229, I'll skip the part with hard R inward. Um, why don't you take a chance? Go crazy. Pick something daring like strawberry or outrageous like vanilla. I did once. I had a lime slush. Remember? I didn't like it. Lime slush isn't ice cream. It's sherbet. It isn't sherbet. It's just slush. Slush isn't sherbet. It was too watery and too tart. Well, lime for Christ's sake. Lime slush. Slush is supposed to be watery. That's what slush is. It certainly isn't sherbet. It wasn't a nice green, and there didn't seem to be that much of it. And it goes on and on. But just like this, like you can take something like ordering an ice cream, and you can tell it tells so much. It's
Oh, so much. Like, can you?
beautiful.
I can't fathom having and good portion of my family is Republican, but not that that means anything, I suppose. But I can't. That's like the closest I can think. I can't fathom personally knowing anybody so racist that the flavor of chocolate sets them off.
Yeah,
Yeah, seriously.
Like,
yeah,
what the actual fuck?
yeah.
Kai, you got a favorite line?
I do, yes. On 283,
Oh.
toward the end, because I had to read it a few times to make sure there weren't any errors. But Meg had lived like a wet, full of energy and excess, but I was not sure he had not died a dry, like a handful of seeds on a shaken tambourine.
It's nice. I like that. I had a couple. There was I'm just gonna where did the other one go? Oh, I'll just do two. One is ideas are exciting to me. They make me want to take them in my mouth, which I thought was great. And then the recurring part at the end was disturbing to me. I asked one question. Did he ever sleep? And that
Mhm.
starts to become that refrain of did you sleep? All this, did you sleep? And that's that hit home. So we're off next week. If you're listening to this live, we won't be here because of Thanksgiving, but we'll be back the week after that on December 3rd to read Why Windows Are Important to Me. This has one of the most classic and lauded and disturbed sections of this book in it. So buckle up. This is a real one. That will think we'll have a lot to talk about, and I believe that we'll have a guest as well. So
Oh, nice.
till then, uh, keep on tunneling. Is that our new
No.
outro?
Take them in my mouth. Do you think Trump likes ideas?